love Joshua. As a matter of fact, my second son name is Joshua, Travis Joshua. I love Joshua for many reasons. And in this particular chapter, this passage, in order to get the most content from the scripture, it's great to understand the context of it. And in this particular passage, Joshua is giving his farewell speech. It's in this chapter that he would give this speech, and then literally in this chapter, he would have his funeral and die. The last recorded statements of Joshua. And you got to understand, Joshua has seen a lot. Joshua was born a slave. He was born in Egypt in slavery like his ancestors. For 430 years they had been in bondage. And he was born a slave, and it's what he knew. And then he marched behind this man named Moses out of Egypt through a Red Sea. He has seen a lot. Matter of fact, Joshua was one of the 12 spies that Moses sent to look into the promised land and bring back a report. And it was Joshua and his homie Caleb that were the only two that had faith. And there were only 2 out of 12 that had faith. And because of this, the Israelites all together had a sentence, a 40-year, that's a life sentence in the wilderness. It ain't nothing more annoying than having a consequence of something that you did not do. Imagine with me this life of Joshua. He's a man of faith, and yet he has to endure 40 years, 40 birthdays, 40 Mother's Days, 40 years of not yet, 40 years of almost. Not only that, but historians believe there were about 2 million Israelites who marched out of Egypt. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that this man had to go to 2 million funerals. 40 years of waiting, and now is his moment. He's finally anointed by Moses to replace him, because there's a difference from being empowered to lead out of a place and being empowered or anointed to lead someone into a place. It's 2 different things, to be led out of bondage and to be led into promise. That's why you got to be careful of who you connect with. All the single ladies, look at me real quick. You got to be careful that you just don't fall for somebody who can take you out but don't have the capacity to take you in. You need someone who's anointed not just to be a deliverer, but to be a conqueror. And this is Joshua. Now, after 25 years of being in the promised land, they've conquered the land. They've killed and defeated so many different armies. And after all this, now it's time, Joshua says, he draws a line in the sand and said, the choice is yours. Choose ye this day who you will serve. I love that. He says the option is yours. In other words, God will not force you to serve him. My God, even after all his goodness, he won't force you to serve him. He leaves it up to you. Do me a favor, look at your name and tell him the choice is yours. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. And so in the verses that lead up to verse 15, Joshua gives a history lesson. He says, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out with a bang. Old man Joshua, they believe he's about 110. Old man Joshua says, before I die, let me die in the army of the Lord. Don't you miss that song? He said, I need to tell y'all one more thing. Don't forget where you came from. And he takes them down a history lesson, reminding them of God's divine intervention, God's provision, and God's protection. Let me just take a commercial break right here to tell someone who came in with a heavy heart watching online and you're feeling discouraged. One of the best things to do when you're feeling discouraged is to remind your soul of what God has already done. Because if you serve a God who can do that, he can do this. I love testimonies like Pastor April, because she can't have a day that's too bad. She can look back and say, well, if God healed me from cancer, then surely God can. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Of course God can take care of this mountain. If God brought me out of that, then I know God can bring me out of this. And Joshua says, before I leave here, let's have a testimony service. He pops up and says, let me remind y'all. And I just want to bring to your attention a few things that Joshua says. The first thing is in verse 3. And please, ladies and gentlemen, don't just read this. Read this. Because this too applies to your life if you can really pull it out of the text. And we're going to do these verses real quick. He starts off, he says, but I took your father Abraham. This is God speaking through Joshua. To the land beyond the Euphrates, I led him through Canaan and gave him many descendants. I love this part right here. He says, hey, watch the credit that God gives himself. I gave him Isaac. My God. God says, I took Abraham out of a pagan, idol-worshiping nation, and I led him to this very place. He says, but not only that, I gave him Isaac. I think everybody need to be reminded that that child is God's gift. I know they got your last name, but they really belong to God. I gave him Isaac. The second thing that God takes credit for is in verse 5. He says, then I sent Moses and Aaron. I afflicted the Egyptians. He says, by what I did there, and I brought you out. I like this. He said, when you cried, I sent you help. I dealt with your enemy, and I brought you out. This shout ain't for everybody, but if I can have 15 people and a 10-year-old that know that the only reason you're still standing is because he brought you out. Verse 10. Verse 10 almost set me up. He says, I would not listen to Balaam. Now you're wondering, who is Balaam? Balaam was hired to put a curse on the Israelites. He was hired by Balak. He said, hey, come here. I need you to curse this nation. And Balaam, every time he tried, he had his ball out. He was trying his little voodoo. He looked at the king. He said, hey, man, I know you hired me for the job, but every time I tried to curse them, I can't curse what God already blessed. He said, he blessed you again and again. I delivered you out of his hand. God said, hey, don't forget, I am the God who made people who were against you bless you anyway. Is there anybody in this room that got a promotion that you know the boss don't even like you, but somehow God used him to bless you? Joshua says, not only that, but God got some more credit. Woo! Look at your neighbor and tell him he got more credit. He got more credit. He got more credit. Verse 12, he said, I sent the hornet ahead of you. Good God. He said, it drove them out before you. Also 2 Amorite kings. You did not do it with your own sword and bow. Right here, this word hornet, I did the research for you. What he's talking about, he's saying that I sent forces ahead, watch this, to weaken the enemy, confuse the enemy before you even got there. There's some battles that you've endured that the devil couldn't give you his best shot, because by the time you got to the battle, God had already dealt with what was about to deal with you. God said, I'm Alpha and Omega. So although you had to fight cancer, cancer couldn't do to you what it did to someone else, because I already sent the hornet ahead of it. You serve a God who goes ahead of you. I need you to grab your neighbor and tell him, God already dealt with that thing. God, what the enemy got scheduled for you, God already showed up and dealt with it. That's why it couldn't take you out. That's why it couldn't take you under. That's why the devil's best work couldn't work against you, because God already dealt with it. He says that I dealt with it, not by power, not by might, but by my spirit. Tell somebody else he got more credit. He got more credit. Look at verse 13. Look at verse 13. Whew, good God, this is my verse right here. Zach, he said, I gave you, everybody believing God for real estate should be on your feet right now. I gave you land on which you did not toil, cities you did not build. You live in them and eat from vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. This next shout is for everybody who know God got something every place prepared. God got something prepared for you. He said you're about to get a harvest that you didn't sow. I know that sounds crazy. How can I get a harvest? This is deep. This is deep. How can I get a harvest that I didn't sow? I'm so glad you asked. God says, because I'm so God that I'll let the devil clear the land, pour the concrete, build the house just so you can walk in it. I need you to grab somebody and tell them God is preparing me for a prepared place. He says, I've already prepared the place for, I'll prepare a table before you in the presence of you. I go away to prepare a place for you that where I am you can be. God has been setting you up. And so, he said, before I die, God told me to tell you, don't forget about his credit. Now, verse 15, after all that, he lands here. But if serving the Lord, after all that, it's just hard. Everyone else gets to have fun. If serving the Lord, I already said, I ain't doing nothing in church no more. I'm going to come, I'm going to sit in the back, because I'm just sick of, if serving the Lord, well, I got needs, so as long as, it's all good, as long as people not in my business, I'm going to do me. If serving the Lord, after all he's done for you, after all the doors he's opened, after all the enemies he's handled, if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose who you will serve. God won't force you. He'll allow you to make the choice. But watch Joshua. Joshua, my dog. That's the player from the Himalayas. I love Joshua. Joshua said, you can choose. Come here. But I already made my choice. He says the choice is yours, but I don't have any options. Watch this. Not just me. I need all the men in the building to stand up real quick. All the brothers in the house. All the brothers in the house. See, when you come to church, you don't just represent yourself. You represent your whole household. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's not just my job to provide. It ain't just my job to have a Glock and protect. It is my job to lead my family into the saving grace and knowledge of my Lord Jesus Christ. I need you to shout for me. I already made a choice. I made a choice for my kids. I made a choice for my wife. I made a choice for my girlfriend. I made a choice for my brother them. I already made the choice. I need all the mamas in the building to stand up. All the mamas in the building to stand up. All the mamas in the building. See, we need to bring prayer back into our homes. My mama didn't give me a choice. She didn't ask me, do you feel like going to church today, Travis? How you feeling? You got a headache? Are you in the mood to go to church? She said, nah, what you going to bring is your black butt to the second row. Sit right here. Listen to me beat this cowbell and this tambourine. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I need everybody who decided to follow Jesus, and you made the choice for your household to take 10 seconds, take the roof off this place, and praise him like you already decided. I've already decided. I've already decided. This house don't have no free will. I already decided. I already decided. No, you're not reading that in this house. I already decided. No, you're not watching that in this house. I already decided. No, we don't talk like that in this house. I already decided. No, you're not smoking that. You're not drinking that.